Thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're really excited to be here with you and to kind of welcome you to our first workshop of the What's Next America series. And so we wanted to, yeah, thank you for attending. Also, thank you for being kind of, our first attendees here. We wanted to start with, I'll start by just introducing myself really quick. Dawn Harfman. I'm a program manager at National Issues Forums Institute, or NIFI. And we're going to do introductions in just a few moments. And we're going to ask everyone actually to introduce themselves because we have a small enough group to do that. And so I just wanted to put that in your heads for a minute. But we wanted to, again, thank you and acknowledge kind of all of the experience in the room here. So as much as we are excited to share, you know, share some insights and experiences from past What's Next work and sort of what we've been working on, we're also excited to be learning with you and from you. So just wanted to note that as well. So let's start with introductions. So like I said, I'm Dawn Harfman, Program Manager with National Issues Forums Institute. And we're going to ask everyone to share your name, where you're from, and kind of what brought you to this workshop today. So let's see, maybe we can start with our team here, maybe Kristen and Betty and Christine. We can start with us first and then go to everyone else.
Thank you, Dawn. I'm so thrilled to be with y'all today. I'm Kristen Bronner. I'm the Executive Director here at the National Issues Forums Institute, and I'm excited to be here today for so many different reasons. But What's Next, working on the What's Next process at a state level in Alabama for many years and learning from Betty Knighton's work in West Virginia was such an incredible experience, a transformative experience for me in working with communities and young people and adults of all ages. And I'm just really thrilled and excited to learn from y'all today, to share a little bit about what we've been working on, and to get prepared and ready for the official rollout of What's Next America on July 8th. So thanks for being with us today, and I'll kick it over to you, Betty.
Okay, thanks. Well, hi, everybody. I'm joining you from my home in Charleston, West Virginia, where I just noticed the sun is peeking out for the first time, I think, in 6 days. So I'm looking forward to some sunshine later on in the day. I can see already that I know some of you and that we've worked together in the past. And in other cases, I'm really happy to get to know new people who are interested in this work. As Dawn said, we really want to learn from your work and also share with you what we've learned from yours and other people's work in this process that we're going to be describing today. So I look forward to talking to you more as the time wears on.
And I'll go next. Thank you so much, everyone, for taking the time to be here today. We're super excited. I'm Christine. I am NIFI's Communications and Creative Manager. And what I'm most excited about, I've been chatting with Kristen and Betty and others about the impact that a lot of this work has had on the ground before, and some of the cases that we've modeled this off of. And I'm really excited just to see as we move forward how communities make this their own and help promote civic efficacy in their backyards. That those kinds of stories are what I'm most excited to hear more about.
Yeah, so I think maybe I'll kind of just call on people if that's okay. We'd love to hear from you all. So, feel free to come off mute, but I can also kind of just go down the line on my screen if that works. So, maybe I'll just ask Brandon if you are available to introduce yourself, your name, where you're located, and kind of what brought you here today.
Sure. Hello, everyone. My name's, let's see, I guess, well, it looks like I can't share my video, but hopefully everyone can hear me. Um, Hello, everyone. My name's Brandon Cleaver. I'm an associate professor of civic and organizational leadership and leadership studies at the University of Tennessee, Knoxville. And I'm also currently serving as the interim faculty director of the Jones Center for Leadership and Service. So I'm here in Knoxville, Tennessee. And then what brought me to this work is Since coming to the University of Tennessee, I've been trying to work with Leadership Studies and the Jones Center for Leadership and Service to stand up a dialogue and deliberation initiative on campus. And I'm tentatively scheduled to teach a course next spring entitled Leadership and Deliberative Civic Engagement, where I hope we'll train students in kind of deliberative democracy, but also how to facilitate a public forum. And I'm hoping that the public forum will use this issue guide as the basis of that forum. So that's part of the motivation to be here today to learn more about the What's Next America issue guide.
Hello, I'm Stephen Kother. I'm over at Sam Houston State University. I do a lot of work with AskU and have been leading deliberative dialogues for quite some time. We rely heavily on NIFI guides. We were introduced to this series of this workshop through a meeting with AskU, and in our current moment in time, we've had to back off some of the more wicked problems, and so I look forward to navigating that with a larger group. Students aren't fans of the less wicked issues, but we all like to keep our jobs. So finding out that balance would be lovely.
Wonderful, thank you. Let's see, maybe Dela, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself. We can always come back to folks too. So how about Devin?
Hi, I hope you can hear me. I'm having
Oh, sorry.
This is my first time to sit in on one of these sessions, so I'm brand new. I am from Ardmore, Oklahoma, and I'm with Oklahoma State University. I'm an extension educator, and I am wanting to learn more about the process because I believe that there may be an opportunity to start a dialogue in our community.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Dela. And Devin now, sorry, if you wanted to go next.
It is Dela, thank you. I'm from Northern Kentucky University. I'm a program coordinator with the Scripps Howard Center for Civic Engagement. I hope you can hear me. I'm having issues with my audio and stuff.
We can.
We are just interested in seeing how we can use the What's Next America workshop series in our things we do on campus and involve students in them.
Wonderful, thank you. Next on my screen, I've got Melissa.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Melissa Sergi, and I am the coordinator for community service and civic engagement here at SUNY Brockport. I've been to a few different things that NIFI has hosted. We always utilize NIFI in our deliberative dialogue events here at Brockport. So very excited to be here today. We are, of course, interested in, getting some more ideas about how to celebrate the 250th anniversary and initiatives we should put on. So looking forward to learning a bit more today.
Thank you so much. Let's see, Norma.
Hello, everybody. Greetings from Chicago. I'm Norma Ramos. I'm the Senior Associate Director for the Institute for Policy and Civic Engagement. It's great to be here. Hello, Kristen and Betty. So glad to see you all. Just a little bit of background about me. I'm the Senior Associate Director here at the Institute for Policy and Civic Engagement at the University of Illinois, Chicago. I teach the Critical Dialogue Seminar 120 on campus, and I also teach the Civic Engagement 320 course, which is in the College of Business. And my full-time job at the Institute, we do a lot of programming and deliberative dialogue. We've used NIFI here on campus. I've also been trained in NIFI and worked on some of their previous guides in the past, in my previous life too. So I'm excited to hear a little bit more about the issue guide and What's Next America. So thank you all.
Thank you. All right, Amy, if you're able to.
Yeah. Hello, everybody. This is Amy Bloom. I am a research scholar in deliberative democracy with Wayne State University. I don't teach there. I don't have a salary. I bring in grant money that I work through them. So I'm the money finder. And so one of the other things I've done is we have established a nonprofit in the Flint area. It's called the Institute for Strengthening Communities. We just got our nonprofit, federal nonprofit status. So we're working on bringing this work across Michigan. I was lucky enough to be trained by Betty. So hi, Betty.
Hi.
I came to this work from a different avenue. I was a high school teacher who actually decided to go to law school and work for 2 out of the 3 branches of government in Washington before I came back to say, oh my God, it's the people. It's the people. We need the people. So I've been very thrilled to have been introduced to NIFI and have worked with them for a while using their guides and giving feedback. And I'm just happy to be here to see what's next and to see how some of the initiatives I'm working on can fit into that.
Thank you so much. We've got 2 more people to go here. Annalisa and then Mandy.
Hi, my name is Annalisa. I am the Civic Engagement Coordinator at Sam Houston State University. I'm excited to just learn about NIFI and expand my knowledge and see how we can use it to help our students on campus.
And last but not least, Mandy.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Mandy. I'm in Florida. I have a small consulting business called Coalescing, and I have had the pleasure of having some deliberative forum experience and facilitation, typically around environmental concerns. And I'm excited to be here just with um, the hope of hosting something locally in my own community. The work I've done has been outside of it, so that part would be kind of new to me. And just here to learn and hear more about how this initiative is going to move forward. So thanks for having me. And just so you know, I think my router might be on its way out, so I'm having off and on reliability. So I apologize. I'm maybe not going to be able to be as engaged as I would like to be. Thanks for your understanding of that.
Of course, yeah. Thank you so much, and yeah, thank you all for sharing. We know it takes a couple minutes to go through and kind of have everyone introduce themselves, but we do want this to be really a collaborative sort of interactive workshop, as well as like the what's next process, the sort of initiative as a whole. We do want to support sort of learning across the network of people who are doing this kind of work. So we think that sort of connection is really important. We wanted to devote a little bit of time to that. So yeah, on that note, if anyone throughout this workshop, we are going to, I'll get into the agenda in a minute, but we will have moments where we'd like to sort of pause and ask you to sort of, talk to each other, talk to us and whatnot. So if you're willing, if you're able to come off of, have your video on, that would be wonderful. We understand that's not always possible, so no worries. So yeah, that, and also on that note, please feel free to ask questions as we go through. We will have time very likely at the end to ask further questions, if there are any other questions or if other things we want to sort of discuss together. But we do want this to be like an informal experience that you can just feel free to speak up and ask something if it's on your mind. So with that, I think we will continue on here to the agenda. So let's see, we want to start with a very brief introduction to NIFI and deliberation. Most of you have connected with us before, but we want to just briefly run through that. And we want to talk about organizing, sort of convening as part of the What's Next process, sort of where it fits in, how it impacts the later steps in this, the initiative. And then we'll talk about actually sort of the more nitty-gritty components of what's involved in organizing and convening What's Next conversations and actions. So forming a planning team, partner communications we'll talk about, the different roles that community members can play. We'll talk just briefly about some logistical considerations, and then also a little bit more about recruiting participants. So we will move on now to, I'll turn it over to Kristen to talk a little bit about NIFI.
Thank you, Dawn. I noticed, thank you all for flagging in the chat that we had not enabled video. I just clicked a button. I don't know if it worked, but you can try now. If that doesn't work, then we'll go back to the drawing board once I'm done talking and have a break. So nice to see some faces. Sorry about that. That was on us. Well, I'm so glad to see so many familiar faces as well as meet a couple of new folks today. So thank you for making time. Like Dawn said, we know that time is so valuable. I'm very, very grateful for you giving a little bit of time to spend that part of the afternoon with us or morning, depending on where you are. So just want to very quickly, for those of you who are new to the National Issues Forums Institute, I wanted to give you a quick highlight about who we are. The first thing you need to know about us is that everything that we do is animated by this idea that solving public problems requires public participation. So we've been around for more than 40 years, and we've worked from the premise that democracy is strengthened when people are equipped not just to talk, but to decide and act together on the issues that affect their lives. So we do that by we support that effort by equipping, empowering, and mobilizing people to use deliberation to take action for the public good. So, what is deliberation? At its core, deliberation is both a civic practice and a decision-making process. Deliberation can strengthen democracy when individuals, institutions, and governments find ways to talk and work with one another, especially when problems are complex and disagreement is real. Deliberation first helps people understand how an issue affects their lives, what others are experiencing, and what values are at stake. In deliberation, participants then weigh options, examine trade-offs, and make judgments together about what direction makes the most sense given competing concerns. Deliberative decision-making can lead individuals, groups, and institutions to identify concrete next steps and shared responsibilities. So building on deliberative work, we wanted to tell you a little bit about What's Next America. What's Next America provides a set of practices that allow people to talk together, to identify ways to improve their communities, and take action to do just that. The National Issues Forums Institute, NIF, NIFI, whatever you want to call us, has developed and provides free tools, resources, and collaborative learning opportunities to support communities in using a highly flexible and adaptive deliberative process, which is what the What's Next process is, to identify a challenge or an opportunity in their community, decide together how to approach it, and take actions based on what they decide is most important. So today we're going to talk about some of those tools that are focused particularly on the planning and organizing phase of the What's Next approach. But before we get into that, we want to tell you a little bit about why we felt this was the right moment for What's Next America. So as you know, we're coming up on the 250th birthday of the United States. And in any commemorative year, it's a great opportunity to not only look to the past, but also to examine the present and look to the future. And so we wanted to provide tools and resources for Americans to talk, decide, and act better together in their communities as a way to do positive things in their communities, but also to build the civic muscle that we think is so necessary for the next 250 years. So that historic moment was a key motivator for it. But to really find our why for What's Next America, we have to go back a little bit in time before we started talking about this anniversary year, because What's Next America was birthed not so much out of an anniversary year as a desire to build upon what we were learning and hearing from communities and states across the country and campuses that were doing really productive, collaborative problem solving. And a lot of that started with What's Next West Virginia. And so with that, I want to turn it to my wonderful colleague and someone who's been a mentor and a friend for quite some time. And that's the incomparable Betty Knighton, who's the former president of the National Issues Forums, as well as the former executive director of the West Virginia Center for Civic Life. And we're very lucky to say she is currently a senior associate with us at NIF. And so, Betty, we want to hear a little bit more about the background and the story and what led us to this moment.
Absolutely. And I absolutely feel like I'm the lucky one to get to be a part of this work that we learn so much from many of you and from the state level work and take it to a national level. So I'm really excited to be here to talk about it. Okay, we have a slide. If you can pull up that slide, Dawn, that just kind of shows you some sort of the trajectory of what we're thinking about with this particular initiative. And I know several of you mentioned that you either had been involved in national issues forums in the past or that you were interested in learning more about national issues forums. And I can certainly understand that impulse because it's been a really important part of community life in many of the places that I know about for many years. Normally, when people think about national issues forums, they also think about the materials and the resources that have been developed by national issues forums over the years, which is a structure that has usually multiple approaches to looking at a complex public problem. And in that case, the issues themselves are researched and they're framed in a way so that people with different points of view can really kind of relate to or examine why people that have a point of view they disagree with or don't fully understand might have that particular point of view. So if you've seen a National Issues Forum's discussion guide, then you know that it's a framework for discussion that takes place in communities and on campuses all around the country. Now on my screen, I'm not seeing that slide. Is that coming up or is that?
Betty,
It
did you?
is.
Oh, okay.
It is there?
Yes, it's the right one.
Okay, great.
Okay.
I'm just seeing you and I'm just seeing you and me, Kristen. I'm not seeing any.
Oh,
So if there's a way that I can see Kristen and the slide, but if I have to make a choice, I'll choose Kristen. That's the way it goes. So
We'll see what we can do while you talk.
okay, all right. So what you'll see on the slide as we've been envisioning it is not just an individual discussion, but a series of discussions. And not only a series of discussions, but a series of discussions that then lead to continued ability to talk and work together and take action on issues that arise inside the community-based elements of that. And so when you're thinking about what's next for America, what we're thinking of is what's next for America, but what's next for Knoxville, or what's next for Chicago, or what's next for Northern Kentucky. So it can be very much acclimated to the place in which you live and very much divided into ways of looking at, talking about, and acting on issues that come up and that are important in your own community. So the What's Next America initiative is really going to be a composite of what we hope would be hundreds of local initiatives that start with a planning team, a group of people that come together in order to reach out to the rest of the community to be as open and as productive in their outreach as they possibly can be in order to bring people from different points of view, different walks of life, different kinds of life experiences, different income level, different races, all the richness that's part of the different threads that make a community connected. And so it begins with a planning committee, then it moves into a series of discussions. And this is not about a guide that's already has pre-framed approaches. It's about the communities developing their own approaches to the issues they identify as important in their own places. So it's based around three predominant questions, and they sound really basic and really straightforward, and they are, on one hand. On the other hand, they're extremely complicated because of the various nuances and perspectives and points of view that people will bring to the issue, and because of how sticky some of these issues can be in communities. But the questions are, where are we now? Where do we want to go? And how will we get there? And if you think about those three questions and put them in the context of the community where you live, where are we now? That question allows people to take stock of what's happening in their communities, how they got to the places where they are, and how they're able to articulate what it is that makes their community what it is in the current time. Where do we want to go? That's where things get really interesting because people have different perspectives about where they want to go in the community, what they think needs to be done, what are the most important issues that need to be addressed, and how can they prioritize among those issues the ones that they really want to dig deeply about to move forward on. And then how how will we get there? That's where the rubber really hits the road, because there's all kinds of different ways that people will have, that they'll come up with in terms of what they think might need to be done in order to address an issue, and what they think could be higher priority, where there will be disagreements about what should be done and what might be done and how they would get there. And so it's really a very deep and deliberative conversation that people have. Now, those aren't the only three questions. The discussion guide for what's next, we have a discussion guide for what's next in your community that you can localize to your community. And it includes those questions, but a lot of other sub-questions that a facilitator would ask in order to help people identify the issue that they want to talk about, or the issues they want to talk about, to determine different perspectives, to talk with different people with different points of view, and to set directions for particular actions that they want to work on together. The other asset that I think this brings to a community, and it's because I've seen it happen so many times here in my own state, is that once people learn how to talk together across these differences in their community, especially if people with different points of view are brought together, once they learn how to ways to talk together, to relate to each other, and to work together, then what you've developed is civic capacity in your community, not just for the one initiative that might last a few months, or even longer in some cases, or a few weeks. What you're really developing is the ability to work together on issues as they arise in the community well into the future. So you're building capacity as well as the ability to work on particular issues. I'm at a little bit of a deficit because I can't see the slides, so I'm not sure what is.
We've been following you along here with the slides.
Yeah, but I'm not following the
No, I
slide.
know. So we're on the one right now. You just talked about the sort of benefits of the process here for the community, and the what's next process itself. And so was there anything that we went through the slide about with the pictures of what's next West Virginia? Was there anything else that you wanted
what's up there now? Does anybody know, is there something on my end I can do to see the slides?
Yes, you need to click view in the top right corner of your screen, where you can see.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll work. I've never had to do that before, so.
Jim is always making changes. Yeah.
Okay, well, I'll work on that while Kristen's talking, but I'll say one more thing about that. If what you're seeing on the screen right now is the people in West Virginia.
Yeah.
Okay, so the slide on one side shows you just a group of people together talking. That one happened to be in Huntington, but this happened in at least 40 places all over the state of West Virginia in various communities. So they are coming together, talking together. What you see on the other side of the screen is just all these wonderful faces of all these wonderful people in various communities that had ideas of what really touched their heart and what really they cared about. So there's a very diverse group of ideas and actions that can come out of this kind of an effort. I think I'll turn back to you, Kristen, and see if I can get my screen working.
Absolutely. So another reason why we do this that I didn't mention earlier, but we're very much inspired by More in Common US's The Connection Opportunity Report that highlighted, this came out last year, that highlighted that Americans actually bridge divides by doing something together. And so What's Next America provides resources, tools, and assistance for helping people come together and deliberate, but also do things together to build on an asset or address a challenge in their community. And so that's another reason why we wanted to launch this initiative this year. And John, I'll turn it to you to talk about what are some of the resources that people can take advantage of.
Yes. Okay, so we're going to talk about some of these, all of these today, and there are others that we won't get to today. But so the planning guide, that is an accompaniment to the participant discussion guides that are at three different sort of audiences: the regular sort of communities, higher ed, and K-12 youth versions, right? So the planning guide is more for the actual planners and organizers. And so we'll be referring to a lot of material that is in that guide. And we won't actually go through that today. What we will show you is some components of what we are calling an organizing toolkit, which consists of several planning sheets that we will go through and actually look at today. and a media and community outreach toolkit, which primarily Christine has put together for us, which is wonderful. And also a sort of we're calling it a what's next things to know document. So just something that a quick reference for if you need to talk about what's next to somebody and like need some information about it. So we will go through all of those things today. One thing I wanted to mention is you'll see these planning sheets that we are going to be looking at. And we'll ask you to maybe start to think about some of these questions, like who might be on my planning team? Like who could I recruit to be on my planning team? And what kinds of maybe logistical considerations might I need to think about? But all of these are really meant to be collaborative documents just to help you and the rest of your planning team or whoever might be working on these initiatives to sort of have a place to collect and gather your thoughts and keep them organized as a team. They are just, they're just tools, resources to use if they're helpful. Plenty of other ways to kind of do that work without using these, but we just wanted to mention that. Okay, I think we can probably move on to the next component here, which is really talking about sort of what a planning team does. So I think we'll turn to Betty for this part.
Sure. The planning team is such an essential and important part of any kind of a What's Next initiative, because the point is not just for the planning team to invite a group of people to come in and have a discussion just one time. It's for a team of people that will consider a whole range of kind of activities that are necessary to really build an embedded initiative in your community or on your campus. The first thing that you want in a member to be on the planning team is, do they really believe that it's really important for people in your community that have different points of view, come from different walks of life, to be able to participate in setting directions for the future of their community and for the things that were going to impact their own lives. That's really the core basic principle of a planning team member. Now, over and above that, it's really important to find people that can be on your planning team who have ways of connecting with all kinds of different segments of your community. So you can recruit organizational partners. In most cases, they're going to be people that are affiliated with something like a faith group or an educational organization, a nonprofit, maybe a government agency, maybe a media partner. So there's lots and lots of different organizations that may not have the exact same goals you have, but they do have this belief that community members have kind of a right and a responsibility to talk together on issues that impact their lives. Many other things that the planning team members would do together is that they would help prepare facilitators who would lead these discussions in your community. They would help identify people who could take notes so that you can capture and share with others what happens in these kinds of initiatives. And they would also be the team that helps people develop practices where they can move from these discussions into action planning. We'll talk a little bit, off and on about the Action Summit, but today we're really talking more about the convening part. But eventually, you have to look at the whole big picture. You would have a kind of a coming together of people that want to take actions on this issue, and then action teams. All of that is kind of the purview of the planning team. So it's a big chunk of work, and that's why you want to share the load, and you want to have many different people in your community coming together that can be a part of that. Okay, next one. Now, it's really important throughout this whole initiative to think about people with different points of view, different walks of life, different experiences. In other words, you really want to have a very diverse group of participants who come to talk about the issues in your community. And in some cases, the people who are most affected by some of the public problems or public issues you're going to talk about are the people who are least likely to hear about this through just a traditional social media source or some other single source. They need to be invited by people who have connections to them. So what you're really trying to do is to work with people who work with people, and who work with people who work with people from different walks of life. And the broader that outreach can be, the more effective you'll have, the more effective the discussions will be. Because rather than thinking, well, I wonder what somebody from that walk of life might say, or I wonder what somebody who's affected by this issue might say, you wouldn't have to wonder. Those people would be in the room in the best case scenario. So what you're really always trying to say is who's missing, who's not here that could be a part of it. Okay. Okay.
One thing that Betty told me years ago that's always stuck with me: when you're forming a planning team, sometimes we think of these in more institutional terms like a steering committee or coalition, but really a planning team is just a group of people who care. They care about their community, they care about each other, they care about the issue or issues at hand, and they care about doing good work together. And so that really helped me think through, okay, I just need to find the other people who care about my community and about bringing people together to identify issues and address them. So begin with the people you know, then seek out those you don't know. As you're talking to the people you know, ask them who else that you should be talking to, or ask them if they can invite others, which is kind of the snowball approach of talking to folks and then continuing to widen that circle, to find others who care about the issue in your community, even those that you disagree with. So some of the helpful questions we've used in the past to identify who can be part of the planning team are: what groups are already discussing this issue in my community? Where are people discussing this issue, and might we join their conversations? So we like to emphasize, I always told folks when I was doing this work very locally, we're not just inviting people to the table or setting a table, but we're asking, where are the tables where people are already talking about this issue or trying to solve problems around this issue? So it's not just about bringing people together at the table that you set, but finding the other places where people are already talking about the issue in the community and seeing if there's a way to connect all of those tables. The little tagline we've been using to describe what's next is bringing new people and new ideas into the mix. And so we definitely see what's next as an opportunity to connect good things already happening in a community, and connecting those tables, if you will. And so some other good questions, what perspectives are held about this issue in my community? Just mapping out and identifying what are the different perspectives around this issue. And do we have multiple perspectives represented on our planning team? And are we meeting people where they are and not just expecting them to come to us? I think that's a big one as well. We want to make sure that we're going where the conversation is already happening and engaging people on their own turf, so to speak. And to help with that, Dawn has created a very helpful planning sheet. Dawn, back to you.
Yes. Okay, so we are going to take a minute and look at this planning sheet. And we're going to ask you kind of a question, which we'll get to that in a minute after you've had a moment to look at the planning sheet, to think about who needs to be involved in what's next in your community. That's like if you're, actively thinking about an initiative, or like if you just hypothetically were thinking about, if I were to do this, who might need to be involved. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a second. And while I'm pulling up the document, if there are any questions, this is a great moment to ask Betty and Kristen any questions that you might have at this time. But I will work on bringing up
I dropped it in the chat, Dawn.
Oh, perfect. Okay. Yeah, I want to just share my screen here. So I get that one down. Perfect. Okay, so yeah, so please take a look in the link that Kristen dropped in the chat. And this is also, if you for some reason that's not working for you, you can check this one out. So this is, again, based on material that is in the planning guide. So, if you read through the planning guide, you're going to get most of this. This is just a way to kind of like walk through this process in like a format that might be helpful to some folks. So what we're going to ask you to do is actually take like, 1 minute, maybe a minute or two, something like that. And maybe just think about, who might need to be involved. Now, this worksheet asks you to do a couple things. Again, it reminds us that the members of the planning team, you want them to be like committed to including diverse perspectives, like Betty was talking about, and also being able to connect with groups who you think are most important to reach for the conversations you're going to have. So this sheet here asks you to think about, okay, these different groups on the left column there, different types of like things to think about. What's an essential kind of dimension of difference or variation that you think would be important to like really think about as you're thinking about who should be part of the conversations. And then, so you sort of can check that box. And then in the middle column here, or I guess the third column, any people or organizations who you can think of who might be able to reach or connect with that group of people, if they already maybe are involved with certain categories of people who you're trying to reach, and then a space for contact information. So I mean, we don't need to fill all this out right now, right? It's just to kind of get us thinking. And again, this is like, these planning sheets are more for like collaboration necessarily than just sitting down and filling it out yourself. But I'm going to give you just like 1 minute, if you don't mind, just kind of thinking about that. And then we're going to have a few minutes to share kind of any thoughts that you might have as you start thinking, and also ask any questions that you might have. So I'll stop talking for just a minute, and then we'll come back together. We'll just take maybe another 30 seconds, and then we'll talk as a group. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And is there anyone who has had any sort of reflections as you were beginning to think about that? Any sort of like people that you immediately came to mind, or not necessarily their names, right? But just any kind of groups of people that you wanted to kind of share, or just reflect on how that initial process felt, or questions that you might have too. You can just like come off mute.
I'm also removing spotlight, so it's a little less awkward to have conversation without Betty and I being in the center. And while folks are thinking, Betty, I wonder if there's a group of folks who helped with organizing What's Next initiatives in West Virginia that maybe was surprising, or that was a really extra wonderful experience that you want to make sure people don't leave out.
Absolutely. I was thinking about it on two levels, because while in West Virginia, What's Next West Virginia was a statewide initiative. So we had a statewide steering team. But just like with the America scope, we were hoping that there would be individual conversations all over the state, and that is what happened. And so there were steering teams at the state level. There were also each local community that was going to have a What's Next Fayette County or a What's Next Eastern Panhandle. They would develop their own planning team too. So it's kind of planning teams within planning teams. At the state level, we were just delighted and, kind of it's some surprised in some cases, and in other cases just thoroughly benefited by the partnerships with a variety of state level partners. One of the most helpful and all of them were helpful, but one of the most powerful was West Virginia Public Broadcasting. We approached, I had approached the executive director, somebody who had actually, as a reporter, he'd been a reporter first. He showed up at national issues forums in the state because he wanted to hear what the public was saying about issues. It wasn't just that he wanted to go out and, send one reporter to talk to one person or to talk to legislators or to look at like traditional sources. He wanted to hear what people who had a chance to talk together would come up with if they had that opportunity. So he was very, very eager to be a part of this planning team. And it was a huge benefit to the initiative as a whole because while everybody has all their own different sources for how they get their news and how they get their other kinds of media, everybody in the state of West Virginia has access to West Virginia Public Broadcasting if they have a way to connect in. Everybody in the entire state is covered by a West Virginia radio station because public broadcasting here is both. So it was a wonderful way to get the word out to people in rural communities, people who didn't have other sources of access for that kind of information. And what he said to us was, our mission is to tell West Virginia's story. And this gives us a way to hear and tell West Virginia's story in a deeper way than we have ever had before. So that was an invaluable partner. Another wonderful partner was the West Virginia Council of Churches, there are probably hundreds and hundreds of faith groups that are a part of that organization. People from different walks of life, different belief systems, but are in that network. And so probably every small community in West Virginia has multiple churches, so or other kinds of faith groups. So it was really important to have that partnership because that could reach out, not because this was a faith-based initiative, but because it was able to reach out to people who, just like everyone else, would have concerns about public issues. Another one of our primary partners with United Ways, because United Ways are very devoted to working on public issues. They might even advocate for particular points of view on issues, but they put that aside for this to be an open-armed, open approach to people talking together. We had people from colleges and universities that were fantastic partners. We had people from local businesses. We had people from substance abuse coalitions, people from homeless coalitions, a lot of the issues that people were most concerned about. So it's just great to have that partnership. And that they had several roles, but the main role was to reach the people that they had access to bring them in a very welcoming way to the broader discussion.
Thanks so much, Betty. And I want to, if anybody else, feel free to come off mute if you want to add anything. I did want to highlight, Mandy suggested adding like volunteers and city and government staff, and for her community that might be an area she'd focus on. And then Steve also, he says he'd hate to make it more nuanced. I think it's a great point. So that some partners or stakeholders are very difficult to bring to the table, especially if there's a power differential. So I think that's, a great point. And I don't know, Betty or Kristen, if you had any comments on that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I remember the first organizing workshop we held for What's Next Alabama. We had two very distinct kind of halves of the room. One half where their local government was very interested in collaborating, and the other one where their government was not very interested in even broad-based civic engagement in the community. And so for one group, we talked through what are some strategies for coming alongside and working with elected officials and other sort of local government structures to make sure that what community members and residents are saying throughout the What's Next process actually gets heard by decision makers and impacts some of the local policy. And then for other groups, we're talking about how What's Next can be one of several tools to help build a informal civic infrastructure for getting things done in a community, whether or not those in power or that have more traditional power, whether they are on board or not. And so we definitely encourage both of those streams. And then one strategy that we found helpful kind of across the two was actually when young people, whether high school or college students, were involved and trained as facilitators or co-facilitators, that sometimes that was an extra draw for a community where elected officials didn't want to show up. or sometimes more institutional players, but they would on the invitation of a high school student and from a school, especially if they're on the school board or have any sort of role related to education. And then also that in certain situations, adults would be more respectful of each other and a little bit more hopeful, positive, and uplifting towards each other with young people in the room. And then I also saw in Mandy's comment that a reply to Steve's point that I think is really important and helpful, that sometimes it is helpful to have different conversations within groups where people feel most comfortable. You know, you can have multiple of each of these community discussions, one that's specifically with young people, led by young people, or co-facilitated by young people, one that's with informal within an informal association, as long as there's an opportunity eventually for folks to connect with each other. But especially if you're in a community or a space where there's a lot of initial distrust, having those safer split places for people to have these conversations and then bringing them together once they're more in a place to talk with each other can be helpful. I might have taken us on a tangent. So Betty, bring us back or add any more if you want.
Well, I just think this is a really important part of it. And I think one thing that is helpful is if people are coming into these discussions that do have positions of power, especially elected officials, to ask them if they could participate in their full self, but mainly as a neighbor or as a community member. They're not, you're not asking them to be there so that they can talk about their role as a legislator necessarily at that point. At some point, it might come into play, but we have a lot of part-time legislators in West Virginia. Most of our legislators are, a lot of our county commissioners are. So there are people who are social studies teachers and hardware store owners and all these other walks of life that aren't, and they're also elected, and they also have a certain amount of power because of that. So if you can invite people to come in just more on their basic level of sharing their concerns, and we've done that many times, and if they start there, then it's much more likely that they'll be trusted by the other people.
Great. Yeah. And Amy, please. Yeah. Thank you.
So I've had some experience in Detroit when we invited council members in, and with state senators in. So let me just talk about the community deliberation around health in Detroit. It changed the dynamics of people at the table when they sat down at the table. They weren't there at the start. So, this is the thing with busy people. They show up when they can. And so that was really bad because everybody stopped the dialogue, to start asking them questions. And all of a sudden they saw this person as someone in a position of power. And so that would be my cautionary tale, is if they come in, they have to be there at the start, so that there's that groundbreaking, not like they're flying in and sitting, coming in. The other way we've done it is had them on the border to say, this is not a town hall where you're going to get attacked. And you warn the participants that somebody might be coming to listen to hear about what the community is talking about. So the value added is that the politicians know ahead of time that their job is to listen and to just, it's a treasure trove. I've done that with superintendents, listening to communities about what's wrong with education and what should be done about it. Mm-hmm. And as long as they understand their parameters and the people participating in the conversation understand theirs, it's a great value added where they're getting all kinds of information without that didactic conversation. Yeah. So I just wanted to add that.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, that's great. I really appreciate that. Yeah, anytime any of you want to share anything, any insights from work that you've done, please do. That's what this is about. So, all right. Well, let's, anything else we need to cover on that? We have kind of a few more things we want to get to here, but if there's anything pressing. Okay. All right. So let's, I'm going to share my screen back again here, and And we'll go back to the slides for a few minutes. Okay. So we wanted to talk a little bit about some of the range of recruitment methods that can be used in this work. I think Betty,
Okay,
hand it over
sure.
to you.
Well, this all starts with probably a few people, and maybe that you all are the few people that are going to get this started in your own place if you decide to go in that route. So, and when you're recruiting other members of the planning team, it's really important to talk to them about what you might have in common, what the reasons why somebody else might want to be either help you organize this, or then eventually to become a participant in it. And so just as it is when you're talking about individual participants, you really want, as much as possible, the personal invitation. Now, I know that you all are very busy people too, and you're really trying to get at large numbers of people when you're talking about the participant base. But when you're talking about the planning team itself, reaching out to people that you think might be have the same mindset as you in terms of the need and the responsibility for the public to have these opportunities, and then find out what other areas you might share of common interest. They might have very different overall organizational goals than you have, but they might share that one. So personal conversations to form a relationship. By the way, you'll be working with these people for a long time in the planning process. It's not just a one-time meeting, so you'll be working with them over time. So it's a good core and a base to start with as well. And then when you're starting with talking about potential partners, a lot of you probably already know a lot about who in your community. You probably are thinking of even particular names as we're even talking about this. But to let them know, early on that what the goals are of the overall project, although they help set directions of how you implement it, and then define what the roles would be. And you want to have people who are able to apply their skills. For example, one of our partners was a community development hub, and they said, well, once people identify things in their community that they want to work on, we can go in and help them to develop practices to get those actions done, or even funding sources for being able to do some of those things. Whereas somebody else might say, well, I can broadcast that story on the West Virginia Public Broadcasting website. I mean, people have all kinds of different aspects and of their own work that they can apply to this, and you'll find ways for that to fit in.
So we have another tool that we wanted to share with you, and I think Kristen might drop that in the chat. Here I'm going to stop actually sharing this, and I'll also share on my screen as well in just a moment. This is sort of, for anyone, I think a lot of you, like Betty was getting at, I think a lot of you probably have quite a bit of experience doing this kind of, talking to potential partners and everything. But for anyone who might be newer to that, we wanted to just take a moment, and I'm just getting to the button where I can share my screen here, and talk about, let's see, for some reason it's giving me a bit of trouble. Hold on a second. Okay, so yeah, so this is another tool for anyone who might just want a little bit more structure to this. And so this is basically goes through some of the different components that we think are kind of helpful in, when you're talking to a potential partner, kind of checking to see what their goals and interests are, where there's alignment or not. And sort of, Betty made the point earlier to me that, you won't always see, like, there won't always be alignment at the beginning. Sometimes that emerges over time. But you sort of want to make sure that they're on the same page in terms of those things that Betty was talking about before, about like that commitment to like including a diversity of perspectives and those types of things. And so these are just some components that we've kind of thought through that, when you're describing the initiative, you want to make sure that they know it's nonpartisan, that you're trying to involve diverse perspectives and experiences in the conversation, and that the goal is actually to set direction for, actions in the community. So that's sort of the first piece. And then the second piece here is, explaining from your perspective why you think why you're excited about that person or organization getting involved. And in that, it's sort of a back and forth though. And, maybe Betty or Kristen could talk more about this in any more detail, but we're really thinking about this as a conversation about their goals, their mission, if this organization, what they care about. Does that sort of align with what you're thinking about? And then sort of also including, conversation about what their expectations are if they see this being a good fit for them on their end, right? So let's see, I'll pause there. Betty or Kristen, was there anything else that you wanted to kind of add to that? And then maybe we can take a couple minutes and if anyone has any questions about that as well. Oh, I think I'll stop sharing my screen here. Let's see.
I love what Betty said earlier. And so I would just keep that in mind. Not everyone, most people don't have deliberative dialogue or civic engagement as part of their overall mission, or many organizations and groups and informal and formal associations don't have that as part of their mission statement or their work necessarily. But oftentimes it's part of how they do their work or would like to do their work well. And so listening for that can be really key.
I'll just mention one thing that I think for some people is a stumbling block whenever they're thinking about being part of a planning team, especially if you're working with an organization that's already working on a particular issue in the state. And I think, when I've been told this, and I understand their concern, well, we're already working on that. So what if people in the community want to go in some other direction, but we've already, put all this time, effort, and energy and institutional knowledge into addressing a problem in a particular way. You can imagine why somebody have a very legitimate concern about that. And so what we've learned to stress and pretty much said almost as a mantra is this is about building on what's happening, bringing new people and ideas into the mix, changing directions and setting new ones where necessary, and then working together to implement those ideas. So that it can be threatening to people who have a real vested interest in a particular issue or a particular set of practices, or they might say, well, I'm with the local university, and the university doesn't take stands on public issues. Or they don't take partisan stands on public issues. And so therefore, what if the community wants to do this, this, and this, and now the university is associated with that? You can imagine somebody having a very legitimate concern just like that. And so it's important to kind of work through that at the beginning and see that to make sure that it's very well known that the host organizations or the planners are not expressing their points of view. They're not associating themselves with a particular stand on any particular issue at that time, although they may in other cases, but they're making it possible for other people to come together and talk through issues. So there are some difficult, not necessarily hurdles or obstacles, they're just real life things that you might encounter when you talk to people about partnering on something like this.
All right, great. Any immediate thoughts or questions that come to mind? If not, feel free to save anything until the end too. But I did want to just pause, and if there is anything burning, you can do the Zoom raise hand or come off mute or anything. So, barring any immediate things, we'll continue on. So next we want to talk about the different roles that are involved in the What's Next sort of approach and process. So I'm going to move forward here and turn it over to Kristen.
Thank you, Dawn. Appreciate it. So we wanted to very briefly talk about who can fill different parts of roles or different roles on the planning team and throughout the What's Next America conversations and process, since part of the job of the planning team is to recruit for these roles. So the planning team is a group of people who plans and coordinates the conversations and the follow-up. They build the partnerships, do the outreach and publicity, and distribute the work, coordinate the work. They should be trusted individuals or organizations who bring people together in your community or on your campus. And they should definitely demonstrate a willingness to work across differences and likely already serve as connectors and conveners already working for the betterment of the community. Part of the role of the initial planning team members is to recruit more of these people. Another key role is that of the facilitator. So in an upcoming workshop, we will cover a lot more about facilitators, but we wanted to include a quick overview today because it's a very important role for a What's Next discussion. As with any deliberative forum, participants are encouraged to share their perspectives, listen actively, ask questions, weigh choices, disagree productively, and hopefully identify next steps for acting together. And a facilitator's role is to help make that happen. They're so key for that. The facilitator isn't and shouldn't be the center of attention. They don't serve as expert presenters and don't do the most speaking. Instead, they're a neutral resource, or they behave neutrally during the discussions to help people engage productively with one another and stay focused on the issue or issues at hand. So as you're recruiting facilitators, that skill set and disposition can be important to keep in mind. Facilitators will also need to provide an overview or roadmap of the What's Next process because not all participants will be able to join all discussions. And so they will need to provide summaries and help keep people on track and up to speed. And also to communicate well the goal of the conversations and what they're leading to. A facilitator asks good questions that encourage and prompt deep and deliberative thinking and discussion. And of course, as you all know, those of you who've been doing deliberation for a long time, a facilitator, a moderator should remain or behave neutral during the conversation, even though we know no one is actually neutral. And then a quick word about note takers. We typically think about two types of note takers. A group recorder or note taker can use a flip chart or a Word document projected onto a screen to capture main ideas for everyone to be able to see. It's a way for folks to be able to correct in real time the notes that are being taken. So we really like to have them posted up so that people can see and can let you know or let the note taker know if they don't feel like their view has accurately been captured. Note takers can help remind participants of their key concerns and the areas of greatest agreement and disagreement. But note taking can also provide a wonderful written record of the group. And that can help prepare for the next discussions or the action planning that the group will engage in. It also helps inform other members of the community about the outcomes of the discussion because they can be shared broadly after the discussions. All right, and then I'll talk a little bit about organizational partners. So organizations and institutions from different segments of the community who contribute particular support or resources are really incredibly important for the What's Next process. So Betty spoke a little bit about media partners. Some of the most innovative and successful public dialogues in the country are those that include a media partner. So I'm excited to share more about that. There's lots of possible benefits to media partners as well as to those to the organizers of the What's Next conversations. And so media can help you increase visibility and credibility, boost recruitment, raise awareness, assist with the storytelling around the initiative, advise on media relations, and provide support for event graphics, printing, or media production, as was illustrated with the What's Next West Virginia example. There are lots of benefits to media partners. And so you can tell them that it's an opportunity to connect with readers or listeners or viewers in meaningful and relevant ways. It's a way for them to play an even stronger role in public life, interacting with and empowering communities, and an opportunity to build deeper relationships with the community as contributing community partners. And so we actually have on staff a journalist, Christine Fernando, who comes to us via the Associated Press, where she reported on threats to democracy. And so, Christine, I don't know if you want to jump in and say anything or just highlight that folks can contact you if they have questions about working with media.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm definitely want to be a resource to everyone who has questions about reaching out to media. I know it can be intimidating at times and also difficult to cut through just everything in a journalist inbox. So I can help with strategies for that. We have our media outreach kind of tips toolkit that we have that helps with outreach in general, but there's a particular section in there for reaching out to journalists. Yeah, in a general sense, some tips that are included on there is, how to keep pitches short and clear because journalists are often busy, how to lead with people and impact instead of focusing on process. So journalists know, here is specifically what matters to them is that impact, and then emphasizing local relevance as well. So those are just a few examples. Also having visuals available or opportunities for photo and video in the future really help. So I am here. I can put my email in the chat so all of you have it, so you know that you can reach out to me anytime if you want to chat talking to media.
Thank you, Christine. I appreciate it. We're very lucky and grateful to have her as part of the team and helping shape the What's Next initiative. And with that, Dawn, I'll turn it back to you to talk about the excitement of logistics.
Yes, hold on a moment. Let me go back to, for some reason, the Canva thing went away. There we go. Come back to that. Sorry, folks.
Good.
Okay, can you all see the slides now again? Perfect. Okay. So a little intermission there. Let's see. Yes, so I did want to flag actually that we have another sort of planning sheet just backing up to the sort of different roles and everything. We do have another planning sheet for that in case it's useful again for, it's very simple. It's just, get little description of each role and a place to sort of, collectively brainstorm like who might be a good fit for that role. Again, most useful for like teams working together. You probably don't need a worksheet like that for yourself. So anyhow, we have one for that. That's also in the folder that we'll share with you before we conclude today. And then this other planning sheet I did want to just touch on. So this it talks about the different components of logistics. It sort of follows the planning guide, which gives like a very detailed list of different logistical considerations that you want to be thinking about as you actually move towards, the meeting times. Betty mentioned that there are even other things besides the things on that list that are also, good to consider. But we don't want to probably spend too much time on that today. But we did want to run through a few of the basic sort of overview of, things that might be important to talk about. Let's see, Kristen, did you want to talk about this slide?
Absolutely. So the logistics might seem like the boring part of the planning, but are actually incredibly important for ensuring that people feel welcome and safe in sharing their perspective and actively listening to others. So venue selection is very important. I learned this the hard way. We did a statewide forum series on what was causing increases to the dropout rate in the state of Alabama and some of the challenges related to so many young people not completing high school. And we wondered why we were having a hard time getting folks who had personal experience with dropping out into the conversations in the forums. And we looked at most of the venues where many of the conversations were being hosted, and a lot of them were at schools. And we thought, where might be a place where somebody who had a poor experience at school not want to show up? And that's school. And so thinking through, where are the public spaces where people feel comfortable? Where are the spaces where people are already meeting? For us, that even included parks. And so would sometimes work with the city to use a pavilion at a park and have people in a place that felt very easy to come and go at, and somewhere where folks felt welcome. And so really thinking thinking strategically about the venue or venues that people feel most comfortable in the community. In other communities I've worked with, it was also about having it in having the conversations rotate in different parts of the community so that people could go to a conversation or discussion in their neighborhood, or in a very nearby neighborhood. That really helped with them feeling as comfortable as possible and having a space where they felt like they could share their perspectives. And then definitely this might seem like an obvious, but avoid holding discussions in places known for having a particular viewpoint on the issue at hand, because it might discourage those who feel otherwise. And then for those of you who've been doing this a long time, you know that room setup is so important. I can't tell you how many times I've shown up to a space and completely rearranged, because it is dramatically different, the conversation that you'll have when people are sitting in a circle or at round tables, than the conversation that you'll have with stadium seating, where people are staring at someone's back, or have to turn to the side to have a conversation. It's just much less productive than when you're able to sit shoulder to shoulder and eye to eye. So definitely encourage that. And then thinking about the date and time of when are people free? And that might mean offering multiple opportunities, some during the workday or at a lunch break, and then others that are in the evening. Providing childcare. We've worked in the past with local high school students who are part of the Future Teachers of America Association, and they were able to earn their volunteer hours by assisting with providing safe childcare for parents who wanted to participate but had very young children and didn't feel like they could fully participate unless there was something for their young children to do. And so really thinking through what is it that people need to participate fully, and to feel comfortable volunteering and dedicating so much time. Additional logistical questions. We like to say that there are two hallmarks help keep people coming back to meetings, and that's ending on time or early and providing food. And so if possible, partnering with a local group that might be able to provide food or snacks for people to attend, and really working to provide those care opportunities like childcare if possible. All right. I know I flew through that, but the planning sheets in the planning guide do a lot related to that. And I know we've got some experts on the call as well. And so, yeah, Dawn, you want to transition to recruiting diverse participants? We've talked about this a little bit already, so I won't belabor this, but why is it important? If you're getting questions about why recruiting a broad cross-section of the community is so important. We really believe that when people from different backgrounds and walks of life talk about community challenges or opportunities, they come up with innovative ideas and form new relationships and networks. And that a solution generated by a broad cross-section of the community is more likely to benefit the community as a whole, have broader appeal, and be more thoroughly thought out and more durable. So it's very important for the sustainability of the decision-making and action, in addition to, in our perspective, just being a good thing. So how? Remember that recruiting diverse participants for the discussion starts with who's on your planning team, and making sure that you have folks who are trusted messengers and can give that invitation that people respond to in the community. And then we really want to make sure, a lot of times we talk about not just engaging with the usual suspects or preaching to the choir. We want to make sure and also appreciate the choir, the people who keep showing up to community meetings and show up time after time. We want to appreciate them and appreciate who does take time to show up in the room. And so people who've already been involved in community issues or who are already vocal about the particular issue at hand, we want to thank them and acknowledge them, and invite them to be a part of the preparation and the recruitment and promotion efforts. And then also work with them and others to reach beyond the choir, including those who may not have felt welcome in previous community conversations or public discussions or deliberations, and ensuring that that they feel welcome and safe to participate. So yeah, want to make sure that folks on the planning team represent a broad enough perspectives and reach within the community that they are able to be that trusted messenger and inviter for folks across the community. And then going through clubs and groups and organizations where people worship, study, socialize, and work, and using those organizations and groups to get the word out and to recruit people. Maybe even working with them to host a what's next discussion during their regular meeting time in their regular meeting space. And so it's a place where people are already comfortable attending and comfortable with that time and date showing up. And so really working with the groups in your community or on your campus to tailor things for what works in your area. And then even going through family groups when possible. In a lot of the small rural places that I worked in, when lots of people are related, using family groups as a recruitment path can be really helpful and useful. And now I'll turn to Betty to talk a little bit about planning those outreach strategies before we start wrapping up.
Yeah, I'll just say a quick word about this, because any of you who've already done any community outreach for National Issues Forums or any of the kind of public work that you do already have a lot of great ideas on this, I'm sure. But the main thing is multifaceted, because some people are going to hear messages one place, some are going to hear it another, some are going to be on social media, some are going to see things in newspapers. But one thing everybody is going to hear is a personal invitation. So if you have a way to invite somebody in person, or that you have other people who can invite them, maybe a person that's a local pastor could invite the congregation, or maybe somebody who is working with a local initiative on a particular thing could invite all the people that they have convened at the organization they already have. So just kind of be strategic in the way you use your time like that.
All right. Well, thank you. And yeah, we are getting kind of close to our wrap up here. I want to actually stop sharing my screen for a moment, and I want to make sure to share with you the Media and Community Outreach Toolkit, and just show you some of those other documents that we kind of sped through, just so you see them. They're also, they're all going to be in this folder that we'll share the link with you for that. We'll, I think, put that in the chat too. But while I'm doing that, what is on your mind? So what is sort of, challenging? What did we not cover that you want to hear about? Or, what are you thinking about? What's bugging you? So I'll give a moment for that, or any other reflections that you want to share too.
I just wanted to say what a pleasure it was to spend time with each of you today. This is the first of our pre-kickoff series, and then we'll be doing another one in later in the summer after our July 8th formal kickoff. And so we really do value the opportunity to learn from each of you and to adapt and update the resources that we're fine-tuning that you get the first view at today. All of those resources for the planning and organizing toolkit, they're not posted on the What's Next website yet, because we wanted to share them with you first. And so yeah, we very much welcome feedback, especially over the next month. And then we shared this in our preview party launch on May 5th, but wanted to emphasize it again today, that we really hope people will adapt What's Next. So you can reach out to Christine and talk with her if you want to change the name on the discussion guide and have it say What's Next your community or your state or your institution. And so we would be more than happy to have those conversations with you and to explore ways that you can adapt and make it work and fit for your context. So please know that we very much want you and your work and your organization to be at the forefront of whatever local or state level efforts. And we love when people reach out to us, but we also are okay if people forget our names, as long as they remember you and each other and the work that they're doing in their spaces and contexts. And so we just want to be good partners. We want to provide support and assistance, but we want to see communities use this, take this, and make it their own.
Well, thank you. And I'm just putting in the chat right now the What's Next America website. I'm also putting my email, just if you have any questions or want to connect with us. I'm a good person to kind of reach out to. Feel free to reach out to any of us, but love to chat with anyone. So I think with that, we will wrap up, and thank you again for being here and contributing your expertise as well as any questions, and but really your experience and your presence here. So thank you so much, and we will see you all soon.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.
Yay!
Right. So I'm gonna
We covered a lot in an hour and a half.
I should stop the recording. Yeah.